Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Daily Combat Podcast. This is Hollywood and Connolly with the double biceps. It is in the contract and legal requirement every single time we appear on camera. The man to my left, but to your right, it is in fact the co-founder, the co-pilot, the co-breather of air, the co-wearer of clothes in this very room. It is in fact the king of sting, the master of disaster, the Count of Monte Cristo. It is Thunderlips, the ultimate male. It is the winner of the Dave Stockbridge of the Year award. There it is there, the illustrious trophy held by the illustrious man with the illustrious beard. It is none other than your friend and mine. Say hello to Dave Stockbridge.
Well, thank you very much for that very warm introduction, as always, Hollywood Matt Connolly. And today we have ourselves a very special guest on the Daily Combat Podcast. It is Joe, the Vanilla Gorilla Brown. Joe, welcome back to the podcast.
I need more nicknames.
Yeah. We're just making mention off air. It looks like you put on about 28 kilos since we saw you on Fight Night. Just absolutely unbelievable.
It's just all lighting and
Just like
water weight.
It's all muscle, all in the biceps. That's where it went.
Absolutely incredible. So how quickly do you bounce back to normal after going through a weight cut? And I understand this weight cut was one of your best. It seemed to go really nicely for you, and a nutritionist on board.
Yeah, Condition Nutrition. He's on Instagram. That's why I found him because Louis Passon, who's been on the podcast before, one of my teammates, he set me up with him. He used him in the past, and then I was like, I can do it. I can do the cut and make the weight, but I'm probably not doing things right. And it would be nice to take the pressure off, have someone else doing all the thinking.
Yeah.
So I can just focus on the training.
So it just means that you're not second guessing yourself
Exactly,
as you're coming into what is a pretty critical time. I mean, you get weigh-ins wrong, and this was for the title fight as well.
Yeah,
so like, you don't have to come in too heavy to find out that all of a sudden weeks, if not months of work has just been cast aside.
Well, I'm professional anyway. Like I'll make the weight and I do it. You know, I think I look worse than like when I step on stage. It's funny. I think I look worse than I am
on the scale. You mean like
on the scale? So
because 24 hours later you look very impressive.
Yeah, but it is like I've got teammates that have it harder than I do for sure. I've got it pretty, and I did my water cup with another fighter who was fighting that night, Mark Macefield. So I went to school with Mark, and he actually got me into MMA.
Oh.
Yeah, and I do a bit of training with him every now and then. But I always do he helps me with the water cuts, and we did it together. And he had a harder water cut than I did, but I looked like I'd had a harder water cut than him,
So it's all just an optical illusion, is what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
And so
I tell myself.
So this one, so your most recent fight was at DFC 18. It was one of the main events of the evening, and it was for the middleweight title, the DFC middleweight title. You've been sitting comfortably at middleweight for some time now.
Yeah.
But your first fight, which was against Damien Vola, and your only loss to now was at light heavyweight.
Yeah.
So what was in that fight that made you, or at what point did you consider coming down to middleweight?
So I had my first fight, and I'd chosen to go light heavyweight because I was walking around. I was about 96 kilos. So to get to, probably to start, like at the start of, I was always training, so camp wasn't really a thing. But let's say about 10 weeks out, I was probably around 99 kilos, and it was mostly muscle. Like there wasn't much fat on me.
Muscle.
Well, if there was fat, it was hidden,
Inside the muscle.
Yeah. So
in other people.
So from there to the next one below light heavyweight is middleweight. That's 84 kilos. That's especially like. Let's be honest, it's just early days amateur. Like, no one needs to be doing those ridiculous cuts and experimenting on the fly. So it was light heavyweight. And then by the time the fight came around, and let's not forget there was COVID, there was a fight pull out, and then there was nearly another, then the next one, a fighter pulled out. So by the time I actually fought, I'd really gone through like 3 fight camps before I got in there. So my weight was down. I'd lost a lot of weight through all the training and, all the road work. And so I was down. By the time I stepped on the scale, I didn't actually water cut or anything or cut any weight the week of. And I was weighed in at 91 kilos. So I was and it's at
90, light heavyweight.
Yeah,
93.
I think it's 93 on the dot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was 2 kilos under. And that's just, where I was comfortable, after that's where my fitness and all my training had landed me, Yeah. So I had that fight. And then the next one was the same year, about 6 months later. But it was the same deal. Yeah. It was just like through all the training, the weight had come down to, I think I'd suggested it to my coach. I said, what do you think about middleweight? Or I'm thinking about middleweight, but, and he'd gone, yeah, well, I'll keep an eye out. And then he just offered me a light heavyweight fight. There was someone that
like, yeah, okay, here's a light heavyweight fight.
Yeah. And then that opponent
I hear what you're
pulled
saying.
out. Yeah. That opponent pulled out, and then someone else stood in, and he took I think it was a week notice.
Right.
So I weighed again about 91 kilos, and he'd done a big cut. I mean, he'd taken it late notice, so he was probably heavy, but he was originally meant to be on the card anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm still sure he would have been pretty heavy. Didn't think he was going to fight. So I think he said he was about 100 kilos. By the time we fought and he'd put the weight back on, he was about 100 kilos, where I would have been 91 kilos,
Yeah.
So I thought this is the sort of game that everyone seems to be playing. For me, like at 10 kilo, people being 10 kilos heavier than me, it's starting to be a pretty big deal, especially I noticed when they would lean against me, it really just sapped the life out of you.
Yeah.
It's a lot of weight. Especially my first fight, his style was to hold me against the cage and drag me down, and then I'm getting back up and getting his weight back up. Yeah, and I wasn't used to that, but the extra weight didn't,
Wall and stall.
Yeah.
So what we went from ground and pound, and then the next thing that became popular was the wall and stall.
Right.
it was like a really bad era. Like it went through, the progressions very quickly in years in the UFC with MMA fighting, the different styles that would be dominant. And it was like, at the start, jiu-jitsu was winning because nobody knew what the hell it was. And then the wrestlers learned enough jiu-jitsu to not get submitted. And then they were beating everyone up with wrestling. And then the kickboxers learned enough wrestling to not get taken down.
And the Sambo guys came through.
That's right. And then it became a little bit of an era where your top level wrestlers knew enough jiu-jitsu and enough kickboxing that they could get guys to the ground and ground and pound them. And, that was like the dominant thing for about 10, 15 events. And then it turned into this wall and stall thing, which sucked. It was like that Randy Couture style of dirty boxing. He'd be pressing people against the cage the whole fight and doing little damages, little punches, but the opponent couldn't get away. And it was very boring to watch, but it was effective. And you saw a lot of decision wins, not many knockouts. It wasn't a good era until people really sort of learned how to, engage whizzes and get the double underhooks to really get out of those positions. You do see it when people start getting tired. They do implement that as well. They'll double underhook somebody or just bum rush them to the side of the cage and just hang out there for 20 seconds to try to catch their breath again. But it was like the whole fight used to be that, and it would be like, oh no, this is the worst wall and stall. But luckily now it doesn't happen too often, and it's usually done for a rest because both fighters are probably gassed at that point, and it's like, okay, yeah, I'm happy to sit against the cage for 20 seconds with you. Keep punching my thigh. That's definitely hurting.
It's definitely a skill, and it's a skill that I think I'm getting pretty good at, especially considering, most of my fights, that's the opponent's sort of plan is to clinch with me, and so I'm stopping takedowns, and it's often easier to take people down against the cage than shoot out in the open because of the distance. And so a big part of my training is learning how, not only get off of the cage, but how I can use that being stuck against the cage to my advantage. And there's heaps of tricks there, but it's it's not easy.
So I think
nor is actually holding people against the cage, especially now. And these guys that are learning everything as they start. That's something that they're learning. So to hold some of these new guys and kids that have been watching a lot of the popular champions, let's say Israel Adesanya, and they'll sort of learn his techniques of getting off, trying to hold these kids that are like still pretty new, but this is like all they've known. Trying to hold these people against the cage, it's not that easy, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I find that you'll see the fight after mine was Brad Wally versus not
Jake.
asshole, but yeah, okay, yep, Jake, right? He was kept against the cage a lot, but it was only because Brad was attacking so much. Where if he wasn't attacking, hunting for takedowns, it would have been a lot harder to he would have had a bit more opportunity to break off. Yeah.
Oh, the main event.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That was a wall storm. Yeah. It was a good example of it, actually. Yeah. I'd forgotten who was fighting after you. But yes, that was, that's what I said. It wasn't exactly an exciting fight for me to watch. And then Rich was saying, oh, but it held it back. And I'm like, but I don't think 99% of the people that were there watching it knew about that. So, you know, it's not something that I probably
think
want
the
to see
way
again.
the Brad does it, though, I don't know, because it's got such intensity when he does it. Like, it's still like, oh, I mean, it's like any minute he could just, and he does eventually rip them off and dump them and attack. But, you know, when someone's defending it so well, it looks like there's nothing going on for a while.
Yeah, it just seemed like he couldn't get the leverage that he needed to get his positioning. There's a few fighters that I think local MMA fans can recognize fighting even from a distance, and you're one of those. Like, you've got a very distinctive silhouette and a very distinctive stance. Now, you claim on the announcers' cards that I get that your style is kung fu. I think it is. You got that big wide stance. You've got a little bit of that going on. Yeah. So is that the inspiration? Is it all Bruce Lee movies and
for
stuff?
Sure. So I through probably year 8, so about 14, I started training Muay Thai. And then after maybe a year of training that, we moved house. And then I was like, well, I need to try and find something new. And where we moved to, the fella we moved into had a lot of these Bruce Lee movies, and he just made me watch all of these movies. I was like, oh, yeah.
He was waiting.
So
he was waiting for you.
He had them
Here's
all.
an empty vessel.
Yeah.
Yes. Have you heard of Bruce Lee? Well, have I got something to show you?
So I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, that's what, you know. So I was Googling what I did all my research trying to figure out what actually like sort of training he did, or what that style was called. But I ended up finding there was only one in the city, a kung fu studio, or Wing Chun. Yeah, So I'm not a master of it, but so kung fu is like the broad style, and then within it, there's a lot of different disciplines. Sort of different kind of styles. Yeah. So I went and checked it out, and I thought it was really cool. Yeah. And you know what? People will say what they will about these traditional martial arts, but like one of my I'd been there maybe 5 sessions or something. He put me in the ring. He had a ring for competition up with this older fella who it was a bit of pad work, and he would like smack me and let me know if I was doing it properly or not. You know.
Yeah, right.
I mean, looking back now,
You'd reckon.
I'm sure there's different things.
Try it again, old man. Try it again.
Yeah. I'm back to vengeance.
Turn up with the Vanilla Gorilla t-shirt.
Remember me?
Knock on the door.
As long as you throw a smoke bomb first and then just walk in behind it.
Yeah, with a few, maybe we'll come with you and just stand behind you as you walk in the shirt.
And then stand like this.
Yeah.
Storm the dojo.
Yeah.
We're here to take over.
Okay, great. At least we got something to do next Thursday night now.
So I did that for a little while, probably maybe 6 months or 8 months, and then moved back to bodybuilding and then MMA again. So yeah, but no. I mean, they ask you a question, what's your style? What what are you going? I don't know. It seems a bit dicky to be like, I'm the best striker in the state.
Australian who hit you? Is that?
Or just stand up or something.
Yeah,
no, it's cool. It's cool.
I don't know. It's a bit of opportunity to use your personality, I feel.
At what point did you realize that you were going to really leverage your reach over your opponents? Because you tend to leave your chin kind of there, just waiting to be hit, and you have this ability to be able to move backwards quickly and counter. That seems to be one of the defining aspects of your style. Where did all of that come about?
Max Holloway.
It's hard to say because it wasn't always like that.
Right.
You know, if you watch my first couple fights, that wasn't really my style, but it was sort of around, probably my third fight. So that would be my first middleweight fight.
Yeah. I see what's happening here. Came middleweight.
Yeah.
Good.
Fighting midgets.
You've got a very big reach advantage.
Baiting them.
I guess it's just sort of at a certain point, after doing it for a while, you learn where your strengths are and different traits that you have and how to use them. And I mean, I haven't mastered it. That's the game, isn't it? Is to keep practicing until you do. But I don't know if I'll ever master it, but I'd like to say I'm still trying.
Yeah. It's one of those exciting things about martial arts and the arm wrestling or anything that has the ability that after people learn the foundational movements, then their own personality or their own strengths or genetic traits will give them their own identity as a fighter. And you really do sort of see that over time because, when you first go in and they learn, okay, this is how you throw punches, this is how you move, and it's going to be the same sort of instruction for everybody. But then over time, it might be, like for yourself, for example, having the hips sort of further back and the upper body leaning more forwards and the hands low, so that
it's
maybe
very gorilla-ish, isn't it?
And a banana in one hand. Is maybe inspiring or in training, it's like that feels natural for you. That feels like you're landing shots more often doing that than the traditional, with the hands up at all times sort of style. And it's like, well, this seems to work for me. And then the coach might go, that's not a fundamental practice, but if it's working for you and you can develop it to the point where it becomes your thing, then go with it rather than trying to force somebody into this traditional movement, which might actually be worse off for them. So with
the biomechanics, like you can't. That's what's good about my gym. I think some people will say about other gyms that they sort of come out, whether it be Muay Thai or kickboxing, they sort of, that's that gym. They all fight the same. They will have that same style, that same movement, but you sort of inhibit yourself because your body's not meant to move in certain ways. And my gym is pretty well known for, I don't know if you could really pick any two fighters from Cardioflex that fight the same, really.
It's not seemingly a Cardioflex style as much as there's more like a work ethic and an expectation, more I would suggest. But you do see that from other gyms that really lean heavily on jiu-jitsu, for instance, or that comes through in the fight style.
Well, there's still that, there's still gyms because it's not, I don't know if there's that many gyms that started off as MMA gyms in Adelaide. They'll, if they've been around for a while, they were probably started off as a particular, maybe a striking gym or a jiu-jitsu gym turned MMA. So that's always going to be their fundamentals, their strength. So, that does come across, but nowadays not so much because people that are starting, it is an MMA gym. So now when guys will walk into an MMA gym, they are learning everything. So they'll just pick up their strengths from what they find the fastest that they learn.
Yeah, it is really quite an interesting thing to see the progression in this sport and in this realm. It's probably the fastest that it's ever happened in history in terms of the martial arts and the progression that it's had in probably the last 30 years, 40 years. Absolutely. So combining, what works, what doesn't work, we'll get in the cage and we'll find out. And it really was the best testing ground because, you had people that were coming from one very specific discipline, and maybe it's Muay Thai, and that's, they're a phenomenal Muay Thai fighter. But they get taken to the ground and they have no idea what to do, and they get choked unconscious. And it's like, oh my God, what I have been training in is not effective in this sort of fight. So you're adding in, okay, I need to learn how to counter that and this progression. And people were coming in the early days of the sport, and you had pancrase and you had all those sorts of things.
Kempo.
Yeah, that's right. But it was somebody would still come
I
from
see Joe Moore as a Kempo guy
with the stick.
Yeah.
They would come in, this guy's a wrestler or this guy's a kickboxer, or and they would have that is their primary strength, and then they would have enough of the other stuff to sort of back them up if they needed to. But these days, you've got people coming in and they've trained MMA from the start. Like they've trained everything from the very first time they've walked into the gym. This is how you strike. This is how you grapple. This is how you, do your jiu-jitsu stuff. This is how you clinching. And, so you get people coming in that aren't from a background of a specific skill of kickboxing or whatever. It's like they have everything going for them, and then they'll stand out in certain areas.
Maybe, Joe, you might be one of that last generation of fighters that actually come from a particular style rather than just jumping into MMA. Like, did you ever find that those early days in Muay Thai, did that inhibit you in evolving the other skill sets or incorporating the other disciplines, or did you find that just gave you a head start maybe?
Well, I started Muay Thai because I liked MMA.
Right, okay.
And when I would, search around Adelaide, there wasn't an MMA gym, or if there was, it wasn't coming up where I was looking, So I was, okay, where do I start?
There wasn't any in Adelaide for a long time.
Yeah, so that's how I started, but I was always doing it. I remember, a bit embarrassing now. It's a traditional Muay Thai gym, and I walked in and I had MMA gloves, and I was like, "Hey, coach, what do you reckon if I can wear?" He's like, "We don't do that.
Get out."
So I was only joking, obviously, just pulling your leg. But that was that was the way I looked at it. Is I wasn't looking at Muay Thai as being like, I'm going to be a, traditional Thai fighter. I was looking at, this is the first step to learning how to fight. And that was a little bit as well as when I would watch a Muay Thai fight, my older brother was right into it, and I'd watch some fights with him, and I thought they all sort of looked the same. And it didn't seem like the guys could be as creative. But that was one thing I noticed when I was watching the UFC. It would come on TV every now and then, and I would watch, I think usually it would be championship pay-per-views or something like from years prior, and GSP was fighting. And I was like, he was mixing everything up, and I liked that he would strike and then they would strike back and he would take them down. And I was like, oh, that's cool how he can just choose to do, get creative, and where if he wants to change it, he can change it, and I like that. So I started Muay Thai, but the plan wasn't to be forced into that box.
Did you have ever anybody that you were trying to emulate, or a style that you went, what, I'm going to be like that guy initially. I want to be like that.
From MMA or from Muay Thai?
Well, from any of it,
yeah. Well, that's funny you say that, because there probably was when I started, like in Muay Thai, and then when I moved to MMA, like I was really built, and I was trying to find someone that was really jacked, that was dominating fighting, and Alistair Overeem was one.
Demolition Man.
Yeah. And I would watch this. I was like, okay, I'm going to fight like that guy. But I mean, you
just got to take about 500 kilos of steroids.
He's like, it was way over my head, the things that he was doing, so not so easy. But I do it all the time. Like, I'll start watching someone and then I'll see things that they do well. Even like from years ago, like just last week, I was doing a run through Anderson Silva's fights, and I was picking up things that he was doing 10 years ago, and I'm still looking at it like, that's really clever. I should try and pick that up,
Yeah, that's it.
But I do it all the time. Yeah. I'll go home from training and I'll just watch UFC. I'll be laying in bed, My girlfriend's like, let's go to sleep. I'm like, yeah. Just one more.
You go to sleep. I've got fights to watch.
I'll put something on that you can fall asleep to.
She's subliminally
John
now
Fitch
she's this UFC expert though. Like she's a real oracle. You can ask her any question. Like, yeah,
it's like my wife Tegan. Like when I was watching UFC like nonstop, and then she sort of got into it as well, which was awesome. And my favorite fighter is Tito Ortiz, which you sort of look like a little bit the height, not the head, but like the height, and the build.
Too small.
Well, yeah, he's got a big head, but like the build, you've got that same sort of, But yeah, so she, knew some of the fighters, but then she forgot what Tito Ortiz's name was, and she was trying to remember, and she's like, "That fighter, the guy, with the blonde hair, that Tiddly Bojangles." Like what?
and then you realise you can't involve her any longer.
No, that was it. It was like out.
So do you ever watch your own fights going back? Is that something that you learn from, or are you one of these guys like, that's all in the past, I'm just going to move on? And
I'm like, I'll judge my own fights. I'll break them down and figure out what I'm doing bad. Yeah, for sure. No, I'm a real student, so everything. And I even go back 2 years ago and watch those fights and figure out what I was doing wrong back then. I'm like, have I fixed that? A friend of mine has been getting into Thai boxing, and he's getting really into it. And the same thing, like all he does in his spare time is watch fights and stuff.
It's just obsessed.
Yeah. And we had a watch party and just went through all my fights from start to end. And he's like, you can tell how much better you've gotten. And I was like, that's not even what I was looking for. I was just looking at things that I was doing wrong, And there's always something. This was good about my last fight is that there was. So for the last year, there's sort of been in competition, maybe it's been a bit hard. It hasn't been as obvious things that I need to work on. And I'll always find something, or I'll ask other people.
So these are things that when you've watched back, you think, I notice them, but most people aren't picking up on that.
Yeah. Or if that wasn't exploited. So, but maybe I'll know. Maybe there'll be a sparring session that I do something wrong, and I'll watch the fights. I'm like, I was doing that, just didn't get exploited, Or So.
And did you have in your mind that there were a few of those things that maybe Damien would have noticed, or his camp would have noticed that they would try to exploit with you, that you thought, I've got to plug that gap? I've got to.
Yeah, well, maybe. Well, they're not stupid. So I'm sure they would have watched and found a few things. But at this stage of like my career and his, it's like we're learning so much still that you can't really go off of watching other people, because I know how much I change and how much better I get between each fight. Yeah. So yeah, I look at it as that was the trouble I was having, is that it wasn't getting exploited. Yeah. And I was sort of, I had a few good wins.
I can tell you really want to tell us, but then you think, no, somebody might be listening.
Well, so it's something that you were doing in training, and getting away with it in training, but you didn't realize that was a bad thing to do.
There's also training is like, no one is trying to throw 100% at you or trying to take, or there might be like one session you have before a fight where you are sparring like 100%, but mostly you can get some people are going to get away with certain things when people aren't trying to take their head off. Yeah. And then you watch a fight, and I had my last few fights where they also weren't able to exploit things. So I was getting away with things, and or I was just handling them. So it was hard to look at what I was doing. It was hard to see where I was going wrong. Whereas this last fight just a couple of weeks ago, I was actually, it's so funny to say, but after the fight, I was quite happy, because I was like, there's some very obvious things that I can fix, and that's a very winnable fight if I fix a few things and get, or even just improve in certain areas, Yeah. So that's why I wasn't too down in the dumps, because I was like, yeah, cool. These are things that are like very obvious, and I can get straight back into fixing them straight away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were a few of
And
those
it's
things?
exciting.
What do you think a few of those things were?
Oh, I think well, I think Joe told me before you got in actually.
Okay.
One of the things was the slight little bit of laziness dripped in, and instead of really picking your feet up and hopping out the way, you were sort of stepping out the way, and then that's sort of where you got caught. Yeah.
And then there's you, or for me, you do have to be smart with your energy and where you use it, but not so smart that you're leaving yourself open and just being lazy. Yeah. Yeah. And because it's a 5-round fight, or you've still got another 3 rounds to go that you have to make sure that you've got reserve in the tank.
Yeah.
But I mean,
how much different was it preparing for 5 rounds as opposed to 3?
not really. There's no difference really. So some people will do maybe if let's say they're fighting 15 minutes, they'll do 15 minutes of pad work. But or let's say they're doing 3 rounds, they'll train 3 rounds of pad work. But we always train for way longer than that anyway. So yeah, that wasn't much of a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sort of, at the certain point, we've got pro fighters on as well. So Brad was on after me. So he was doing 5-minute rounds. So I would just do my regular training for 5-minute rounds instead. And then, so I guess I was doing more training than, I wasn't even doing more training than usual, because we always sort of push ourselves. Yeah. And we're always having short rest breaks. So then when we're in the fight, we have a full minute. We're like, oh my, happy days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if people haven't already caught the matchup, they can still buy DFC 18. It's available on Fight TV, the whole pay-per-view event. So you can certainly go over all of this in granular detail.
What a card it was as well.
It was an outstanding card. It was one of the most exciting nights of fights I've had the privilege to witness. It was
8 first-round stoppages in a row or something.
And we were still there till 11:30 somehow.
Yes.
And but just a huge night. I mean, there was tremendous energy in the room, and probably no more than when you walked out yourself. I think half the room were Vanilla Gorilla fans. Seemingly, like there was about 30% more of these T-shirts that just appeared about 5 minutes before. I don't know if there was somebody out there handing them out or how it went, but all of a sudden, you've got. So now that you've enjoyed a high degree of success as an amateur, and you've now had a title fight, and you've got this emerging profile, and it looks like you've got some branding on point. I noticed, like, obviously at some point you must have reviewed some of those videos and realized that your nail polish game wasn't quite where it could be as well, and so you've upped your game there. So it's all part of it. So where does some of these ideas start to emerge, or when did it start to occur to you, like, well, to be a successful MMA fighter, I've probably got to be a bit of a brand, or I've got to start to develop. What?
Just the nail polish made me laugh.
You're still lingering with it. So some
old fashioned.
Yeah.
That was funny because there was an era where people were doing that. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
Okay.
Chuck Liddell was doing it for a while, and there was a few fighters that were painting the nails in their toenails.
Okay.
Yeah, leading in, it was about UFC 60 to 60.
So is that where you got the inspiration, or
toenails is a bit far? That's where we're doing.
Coach Heike is only good. Yeah.
He can only stand so much.
Yeah, there's a line. There's a line in the sand. So when did it start to occur to you? Like, I'm gonna get some shirts. I'm gonna start like working on my brand here. I've got some people seem to like me. I'm a good looking guy. What can I do here?
I think I just love everything about it. I like everything about the sport and the production and the shows. Yeah, I always have. And I guess like it's so much of it starts with the walkout, right? When no one really knows who you are. So you have if you can have a walkout where like really you can make an impact, suddenly half the room is like, oh, I like that walkout. I don't know either of these guys. So I'll probably root for the guy that,
came out to the Dire Straits song.
Got me excited, You go, oh, I know that song reminds me of the pub back in the 70s. Yeah. So I guess that's where it started in that.
And so, are you giving thought to what your walkout music is and how it's going to make people feel when you walk into the room, or how it makes you feel when you walk into the room? Like, what are you?
Yeah,
what are you going for?
That's more important. Is how it makes me feel. I mean, some people might prefer to walk out to something like pretty heavy.
Yeah, you got a bit of that.
You know, there are people that like have that pump up like screamo music, yeah, that sort of thing, you know, and they feel like they have to like work themselves up to. I'm like, it's a fight. Like, do you really have to work yourself up? I mean, you know, I'm going to be pretty pumped no matter what music I walk out to.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't know. It's just more about something that makes me happy.
Right.
Yeah. I'm pretty calm when I'm walking out, and that's the big. Yeah. No, I'm trying to keep my composure and just be relaxed, but more than anything, just be myself. And I think it's wasted energy if I'm trying to be anything I'm not. You know?
So are you in control of how? So when you're walking out, for instance, and you can hear the roar of the crowd, and you can hear your name being called out, and you know that every eyeball in the room is on you as you're making your way to the cage. Like, do you have it in your mind? Are you gonna take all this moment in, or are you like, I'm just focused on, I'm getting to the cage and I'm getting there, and then I'm gonna give all 57 people here a hug, and then I'm going to in my team, and then how are you going about that thought process?
Well, I'm always like visualizing and preparing myself before in the weeks leading up to the show. So by the time it comes around to it, I've already done it hundreds of times. You know, every night before I'm falling asleep, I'm visualizing. Even on the job site, like I'm at work and someone's trying to talk to me, I'm like, oh, sorry, I was somewhere else. You know,
like, I was dreaming of a crane kick.
The lights. What?
That's it. Yeah, I think people can get in their own heads, but if that's the first time, if they haven't prepared themselves that way, and it's the first time walking out, and it's the first time feeling those feelings and smelling those smells and hearing the crowd, then you can get in your own head for sure.
Have you ever fought outside of a DFC event, apart from Sambo? And
no.
So you've really had that benefit of being on the big stage from the get-go. This hasn't been like you've been working your way through the ranks in the back rooms. Like you've literally been propelled onto maybe the biggest stage in Australian MMA.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which I thought would get to me more than it does. Yeah.
No, I think it's something that it seems to really resonate with you. Like those big moments are something that you seemingly built for. Yeah. Or perhaps it's just that mental preparation.
100%. Yeah. I can't really overstate that. It's like so much of the preparation some people overlook is your visualization, and not just the walkout, obviously, the fight. But just by the time I make the walk, it's not the first time I've been there. Yeah, it's definitely, that's what makes me the most comfortable, is that I've been there so many times, and I know what the room is. That helps. I know what the crowd sounds like. I know where I'm, so I can actually truly be there in my mind. Yeah.
That's I think it was Tim Sylvia that said 90% of the game is 50% mental.
Yeah. For real.
I think it was after he just lost the fight, so fair enough.
That's why you don't interview. Usually
That's right.
You don't
interview really locked out fighters. It was Mike Tyson also said, I take my hand off to him.
So when you mentally prepare for this fight, how did you imagine? What did you imagine your pathway to victory would be?
I thought it would be picking my shots always. The way my fights generally go, sort of how I plan them. It's picking people off as they rush in, punishing them. Generally, at some point, getting caught
skipping out the way,
skipping out the way,
not just stepping lazily.
Yeah, and just accumulative damage. Yeah, I don't generally put 100% behind any of my punches. I mean, I'll sit down on someone that I feel it's there, but yeah, I'm not trying to go out there and blow my wad trying to force a finish. You know, it's a cumulative damage. Yeah, which even in a fight that wasn't really going my way for half of it, it was still at the end of the night. You could see the cumulative damage that, you know, maybe if I'd been a little bit more switched on, yeah, it would have gone a different way. But
so after that, so Damien's now officially the only person that has beaten you. So your first fight and your last now. He moves now into the professional ranks, having retired. He's put the gloves in the middle of the cage and said he's making that move up to professional. So now for you, you've I'm watching Matt type instead of thinking about what I'm going to say.
So I'm just responding to this.
So for you now, do you see yourself following Damien into the professional ranks, or are you going to hang around and collect some belts yourself and get a few more of those amateur bouts under your
a few more buckles. Yeah.
You got to wear the belt under another belt.
Well, there's still a few more shows this year, not in SA, but there's still some around Australia this year.
So you're still keen?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I was back in the gym in 3 days after the fight. You know,
wow.
I was, you know, back to training. You know, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And so the big thing is I just want to keep busy.
Do you only fight for titles now, though? Is that the
when you make the money, you know, they give you titles.
I think you should be the next. I mean, if Damien's moving on out of the amateurs, then that performance that you had on the last weekend definitely warrants another title shot for sure. If there's a vacant belt there, I think a middleweight title belt, there's no one better qualified. You know, Joe Brown versus somebody.
There's something somewhat reminiscent of DSC 17 and all of that, where Daniel Curtis kind of said, "Well, that's it. I'm moving to professional. That's it for me. Talia, you should, you know, you're next in line. All the best." And everybody kind of felt that fight had potential to go either way. And there was a lot of disappointed people in the room when the decision was announced. And then, you know, you kind of, although you lost under different circumstances, the reality was there was right up until then, it could have gone either way, right until the end. So, you know, a lot of people thought, well, you know, Joe's a formidable middleweight here. You know, what the big question was, well, what's next if there's not a rematch here? And so what does that look like to you? Just getting more fights under your belt?
Yeah.
But you're getting more fights out there. This is
Do you want him to sprinkle some stardust on something?
I'll lend you mine. So it's been just keeping out there, keeping really active over the next 6 or so months and seeing what opportunities emerge?
Yeah. So when's our next DFC show here in Adelaide? It's March. Yeah. So, geez, I don't want to wait 6 months to fight again. You know.
Yeah.
I want to get back in the cage and show what I keep improving. You know, titles or not, I don't. You know, this was my first title fight, but I mean, I could have been calling for a title fight long before that. You know, I didn't really even this last fight. It was more about the opponent and my preparation for the fight the hard fight that I knew it could be. And I think I got told what the match was, and then it wasn't like 3 weeks later that I sort of realized, oh, and there's a title on the line. You know, that's cool. Yeah, it's not really what I focus on. I'm just so focused on performing and
mastering your craft.
Yeah. And if there's titles, then there's titles. But
And what do you think? What are the opportunities like for fighters like yourself at the moment? Are promoters actively seeking fighters like yourself that are exciting, that have got a good brand?
I think they hate it.
Yes,
It's probably
that's the last. Yeah, they don't want that.
Yeah, strange because there was some comments just coming back and forth with another podcaster just recently, just complaining about the lack of opportunities available to fighters. And it's like, well, you know, there might be some really good fighters out there, but you look at their Instagram page and they've put like 3 posts on the last 6 months. You don't know what they're doing. They're not thinking about their own branding. They're not thinking about, you know, how they can support the promotion and how they can get out there and do things like this podcast and that type of thing to raise their own awareness, marketability.
Yeah.
Well, I'll see the effect that has. Like, obviously, my coach is a promoter for Diamondback, so I see that, you know, a bit of the work that goes backstage into thinking, well, yeah, I want to fight that guy. Well, that guy, you know, it costs a lot of money to fly him over from, say, Queensland. So, maybe if we can get 2 guys over from there, it might be more worth it. Then they'll have more of a crowd watching them back home buying the pay-per-view or things like that. Like I sort of I do understand the game, and I get to see it on maybe from a different perspective than some other people do.
Yeah.
But you know, the fighters are divas too. Like, some guys think, I won't say who it is, but I remember speaking to an amateur years ago.
Very Geike.
Impressive record.
And I was like, so are you
never lost?
Yeah. I was like, so when are you going to fight again? And he's gone, oh, you know, I wouldn't fight unless they'd have to pay me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I mean, it's an amateur fight. The only reason you're fighting is for experience. Like, you know, how bad do you really want to get out there and show what you've got?
Yeah.
I mean,
and how many tickets can you sell?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So I guess, you know,
but even that, it's not. Just start thinking less of what can you do for me.
Yeah.
More of, this is what I've been working on. Can I please show everyone what I've been working on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Bring that ethic about.
Yeah.
Let's put it in the cage, and also, you know, let's look a little bit outside of that and think, well, there is a business here. Ultimately, if you don't fill the room, you don't sell tickets, and you don't have anybody buy the pay-per-view, there's not another event. So,
no, I don't know if anyone starts an MMA show because they're like, oh, this is the gold mine.
Yeah.
You know?
Got to make $1 million in a
easy,
year.
It's an easy way to take a large fortune and make it a small one. Very, very
You
quick
ever
way
think,
of doing
I
it.
just got too much money.
Yeah. You know what I'm going to do? Fight promotion. That's the ticket.
that'll get rid of it.
No more tax problems.
I've got $200,000. How do I make this 100,000?
3 weeks or less.
That's right. Yeah, it is crazy, isn't it? But that does show you that if the people that do put the effort in, they've got charisma, they've got a social media following, they've got the ability to promote themselves, and the promoters, they realize that, hey, if I get this guy on my card, you know, the pay-per-view sales is going to be up, interest is going to be up. Like, you know, you do get to command a lot of more opportunities will arise because you're putting in effort that people will know who you are.
Well, if I was a fight promoter and I was looking at DFC 18, and I looked at the pan around the crowd and saw how many of these T-shirts were being worn, and heard the roar of the crowd when you walked out. I mean, I think it's undeniable that, you know, there's some star power there, and there's somebody that you can bring on your show, knowing that it's either going to mean bums on seats or eyeballs on pay-per-views, one way or another. And that type of bankability makes a big difference to opportunities that might present. You know, there are a lot of good fighters out there, but there's only a few good opportunities. And so, you know, fighters that are doing what you're doing now, Joe, are heading in the right direction because you're making sure that those doors remain open to you. Yeah.
Well, let's also say, like, there's how many fights on one? So I don't know how many shows we've got here in SA, but I think really there's only 2 that are consistent
for MMA.
To MMA, yeah. I mean, there might be some that come down to South Australia every couple of years, but really we've only got 2 shows. So one of them runs 3 times a year. The other runs, I think, only 1 time a year. So there's only so many fights. So, I mean, if you want to fight, it's not, how much, what am I getting out of it?
Yeah.
You know, it should be more, please, do you know how many cards there were that I was trying to get on before I finally had my first fight. I think there was probably 4 cards that I put my name forward, and I was saying to my coach, please, think about me, when you're doing a matchmaking, think about me, Yeah,
you got to want it, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like I'm like some super like local famous dude on TikTok or anything. It's the people that support me because I go out and I just try my best, and it turns out to be an exciting style.
Do you promise that Dire Straits will be on when you tell people you're fighting? Like, oh, sure, we'll be there. Yeah.
I wouldn't say, but Dire Straits. When is it actually?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll think about what's your workout song? You know what? Actually,
I think I have that night free now.
So I'll bring the whole family.
Yeah, I think I can miss the wedding actually.
Miss the wedding. She'll be fine. She'll figure it out.
But that did help me a lot. I mean, I had a fight that maybe not too many people knew who I was. I had used that song. The other guy probably had more people that knew who he was. I walked out and had a not an easy fight, so I had to put my stamp on the fight and throw some big shots, and had lots of success and came around with the win. And I think people could just see how excited I was, and that I was like over the moon that I'd won, and I wasn't just putting it on, I was just being me. And then I had maybe it's luck, but I had another fight that sort of blew the roof off the stage that maybe was on a card that there weren't too many fights that were crazy. Like there wasn't a whole lot of stoppages, and so then towards the end of the night, I had a fight with another really game opponent in D Samasoni, who
that was nuts.
Yeah, that was a good, but it helped me immensely, more than it helped him, because it was in SA, so people would then recognize me on the next show. But but that just comes down to matchmaking, and my coach and the promoter knowing that this guy's he's going to fight hard, and it's going to be an exciting match, and at any point, you don't know, is someone going to get flatlined,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think
I think that's the big thing, is having exciting fights and just trying your best.
Well, I think that's like it is difficult to like kind of put your finger on, but my wife's quite the litmus test when it comes to things. So she's got no interest in MMA. She doesn't know who Royce Gracie is or anything. It's just something that I go away and do, and do the ring. I don't do MMA, but but she's come along to a few of the events, and you're one of her favorites, if not the favorite. For all of that, like the music comes on, she knows, it's a Vanilla Gorilla. She loves Vanilla Gorilla. It's in her mind, like she knows, yeah.
He's my guy.
Yeah, he's my guy. Yeah, and so for all of that now, it's like now she looks forward to when we go to fight. So, is Joe going to be fighting? Yeah, okay. Oh, all right. And I'll stay up.
Well, I can't take all the credit for that as well. So, like I said, there's some hard fights that people will remember, and there's also my fiance, but it's a lot of the branding and the nails, and it's not her idea, but it'll be my idea. But she's the the test. I'll go, what do you think of this? She's absolute rubbish, and then she'll take the wheel and steer the ship.
Where did the Dire Straits come from? The choosing of that music.
Yeah, where did that come? That's right. I was driving my car, and it came up on a playlist, and I just had not heard that song in like 10 years. I was like, the guitar solo just goes absolutely so hard for no reason. And I think it was probably maybe a few weeks before a fight, so it was in my mind already. Like I was sort of like on the lookout for songs as well. And I remember, I recognized. So I used to play a lot of guitar, and that was just one of the riffs that I was like, that was good fun to learn. So I recognized the riff, and I was like, how have I never thought of this, you know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great because
But-
it is a classic Australian band
Anthem,
and song, and everybody knows
Well, it's
it.
not Australian. It's English.
Well, you know what I mean. Like, it's a very popular. That
well,
it's
that's our culture.
Everybody loves
adopted
it.
into
Australian culture is
Yeah.
whatever we steal from the English.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's basically exactly anything that gets popular there is ours. Same as New Zealand.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does hit because you've got that long intro, and it's sort of like everyone's waiting, like, because you don't really remember what that part of it is.
Yeah.
But as soon as the guitar, you're like, it's this. I love this
People
song.
like clapping.
Yeah.
And then you get into it. Yeah.
That's it. But
Because you're
changed
fighting
it this
towards the
time.
end of the night, everybody's had a few drinks by that
That's right.
stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing is everyone recognizes it. And,
Yeah.
yeah. But if they don't know who's fighting, or they don't know these two guys, or that guy had a wicked song, like I love that. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of old blokes that'll come for watch their son or their daughter fight, or their mate's kid fight, and they're like, that song goes hard.
Yeah, well, it's fun. It's fun for the audience because sometimes you get quite a boring fight, and maybe if you get 2 or 3 of those in a row, it's like you can feel the energy start to suck out of the room. But then when you get a song that everybody knows, everyone's like, oh, and they all love that song. And it's like, you can feel that. And then especially if the fighter coming out is like, into it as well. And they're like, oh, this guy's awesome.
Gives that guy some goodwill, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah. And getting in, and they'll give you a cheer just on your song choice.
Yeah, I remember that song. Yeah.
That's right.
I think there's more of that going on. I think people are catching on that that is a huge opportunity to sort of make a stamp on the show. Yeah. Especially this last show, there was some guys coming out to some pretty funky music. But it's
the
their
Venga
first
Boys.
fight.
Venga Boys twice.
Then you changed it though, the Dire Straits song. You changed it to a different one this time.
Yeah, I had another Dire Straits song that was always in the back pocket, and I wanted to use it for something else.
Songs to Swing, was it?
No,
this
it was the
Walk of Life.
yeah.
Walk of Life,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
So I just like the way that
that's the
song
final
makes me feel. Yeah.
Same song.
Also Australia.
Yeah.
Even though the band's called Europe. It's the Australian Europe.
Yeah.
It's past
It's
Wagga
ours
Wagga.
now. Yeah.
That's so
It's-
derailed you.
There's so many though. Like it's just listening to like my radio while I'm at work. Yeah,
Mm.
There's so many that pop up. I'm like,
You're like,
why
ooh,
has no one used
bookmark that one.
Yeah, but still, it's not better than Dire Straits. But
No, that's right. And will you stick with them, do you think, or you just got to wait until maybe the day of, or a couple of days leading up to
Yeah,
it?
when do you make your decision? Like, when does inspiration strike you?
when it's almost too late, and they message me and they go, "Hey, dummy, we need a
It's
song."
like, oh yeah.
All right.
Shit, where's my playlist?
All right.
So quickly go through my favorite songs.
Yeah, did I tell you? I think I've said this before, but Rory McDonald, who was fighting on the UFC, he's not with them now, but he had changed his phone number,
Yes.
and
Yep.
but didn't tell the UFC. So whoever he had to contact, they were contacting him properly through that channel. But the guy that was booking the music had his old number, and he would text and say, "Hey Rory, what do you want as your song for the next night?" And this dude, whoever got these messages, would send the most weirdest songs back. And they're like, "Oh, okay." And then so for like 5 events in a row, he came out to like Madonna, like it was just like the weirdest song. And then finally, I think that guy had seen Rory in person at something, and he goes, "Oh, Rory, that song that you wanted, I can't get the rights to that one. You have to pick something else." And he's like, "What? I haven't picked it. I haven't picked one." And he's
I've
like,
picked one in 5 events.
"I thought you guys picked it."
So good, so good.
That's
So, Joe, so you're hoping to get a sneaker. You said there was 3 events. Are you hoping to fight at all 3?
Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
So promoters out there around the country right now should know that this young man is ready to go.
Ready to rock and roll.
Ready to go rock and roll. Sticking at middleweight. That's the idea.
That's the home.
That's the plan. That's where we're staying. And staying in amateur for a little while. Yeah, at least get the next 3 fights out between now and Christmas, and then we'll see what it's all about. Recently engaged. Congratulations.
Yeah, that was. Yeah. Thanks. I mean,
Yeah.
it was hard work.
Yeah.
I had a sore leg. It took me a while to get down.
Did you have plans of proposing if you'd won, like in the cage? Was that something? Or was it
Kind of, but I could not do. No, I could not do that.
couldn't do it to her? She would have said yes anyway.
Oh, well, yeah. What's she going to say no in front of 1,000 people?
That's right. Everybody there in the vanilla religion.
Boo.
Get her a new girlfriend.
Oh, Mariam.
Oh, so that well, congratulations on that, mate. It's an amazing time in your life, and so plans moving forward, not necessarily to move to professional right away.
Well, it's always there, but I mean,
let's have some fun.
There's definitely, I think, more opportunities at amateur for the short term to get a few amateurs, rather than probably be trickier to find pro fights on short notice.
Be good fun to fight interstate as well, just for the experience of.
Well, I'd like it too. Yeah, I mean, I've always been the hometown boy, so maybe I can go in as the bad guy.
You can be the Kurt Angle. In the heel.
That's right. You know, he thought he was coming in as a face, Kurt Angle did. He was convinced that the crowd was going to love him because he was a gold medalist from the Olympics. Yeah. He looked good. He smoked nice. You know, he was real clean cut. And he's like, they're going to absolutely love me. And everyone's just like, no, they're not, mate. They are not going. And he's like, they will. And then when he walked out, they booed the shit out of him. We got a question for Joe from Fox 8 Ball here. Question for Joe. When he decides to stop MMA, will he come over to arm wrestling for a different pain experience?
I think you guys...
We'll hand over the Gripzilla now if you want. Start your preparation.
The Gripzilla?
Yeah, watch your nails.
You can start strengthening your wrist with it. It's sort of like riding a bike.
Yeah, ride it. Oh,
there you go. Yeah, do that for a minute and see how your wrists feel.
Yeah. I don't think I need to strengthen my wrist. I've got other ways.
For the arm wrestling career, you would.
I don't know. It's I think like arm wrestling looks really easy. And then someone shows you for fight. Oh, hang on. No, this is not for me.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, that on the surface level, it's very easy to understand, which is fantastic and a great advantage for the sport. It's like, oh, yeah, I get what's happening. It's like he's just trying to put his arm there. He's trying to put his arm there. That's very simple to understand. Yeah. But then you've got an endless cavern of knowledge and technique of what's actually happening. Probably the same as MMA. People that, would go, oh, I can see what Joe's. Oh, he should have done this, and I could have done that.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I would have got it. I would just fly kick him in the head.
Punch, followed by crane kick, all
no
over.
Idea. I got no idea.
Just get up.
Just get up. Stop laying on the ground and get up. Just knock him out.
Hit him harder.
Just knock him out. That's all you got to do.
I just go straight for the jugular.
Yeah, that's right. Give him the old dick twist. Have you seen that clip? There's a guy. There's a guy in the crowd at one of the UFC events. He's obviously a drunken idiot. He's yelling shit. And then he goes, give him the old dick twist.
Like it's a move.
Yeah, it's like a real thing. So good. Bill Woody, he says he loves the t-shirt. So there you go.
Thank you.
We've had some good comments throughout. I didn't want to interrupt, but we've Matt Tabe, who is the Roll Clean soap. You can see the right behind his name. Actually, it's right there, Roll Clean soap. One of the sponsors of the show. But Fox 8 Ball used to do jiu-jitsu back in the day.
I wonder if there's still 30% off. So if you do go, there's 30% off. You can head straight over there right now.
I see. Josh asked what his rank was, which I said that he just fought for the middleweight title, but still sitting in the amateur leagues at the moment, but looking to go professional.
So
right up there is
7-2.
Yeah, we can go with that.
Is it? Well, no,
4-2.
4-2.
Yeah,
7-2 sounds better. Though.
Okay.
Yeah. And Fox 8 Ball is a fan of Joe. He says, "You have a look," and then nice lad. And there was a very positive comment. I love how he just tells a story listening. I'm listening in and I'm learning something. So there you go.
These people are so nice to me.
Absolutely. And then when we got the question,
there's got to be someone in there.
Considering he thought he was tuning into an arm wrestling podcast, he's like, wait, what's this? MMA? Well, I've never heard of that before.
That's right. Get out of here with your kicks and your flying stuff.
Let's show you how real men do it.
Yeah,
that's right.
Let me show you my staunch wrist.
This lad's actually pretty interesting, says Fox 8 Ball. So there you go. fantastic. And loving the t-shirts, says Phil Woody.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to have people coming in and learning about something new for them. That might be something different if they're not into the MMA world. Josh Barker was in there earlier. He used to fight in MMA. Obviously, he used to have, I think he was having issues with his eyesight.
Yeah, he can't see.
Yeah, which sort of is a bit of a detriment.
That's fine in arm wrestling.
It's great in arm wrestling.
Yeah,
that's right. It's kind of important when you're fighting somebody.
Yeah. Shadow. I don't know.
That's right. What about now? Like, are you still watching fights from just any era and stuff that you're interested in, or are you sort of looking at what they're doing today and being like, what's the current stuff that's being utilized, and should I implement those in my game, or is it like just the ones you want to see and then still picking up stuff
I'll
from
put it
that?
to you in this way: could you win in UFC 3? Go back in the time machine. They don't know any
when
technique.
they were like 300
They
pounds.
don't know. Yeah.
There was no weight limit.
Yeah, there was no. Yeah, so chemo, you'd be up against chemo or
Joe Son.
Butterbean. I don't know.
No, he didn't fight it.
Did
He fought in Japan. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. So that was Friday.
Hoist Gracie was still in it.
Hoist Gracie was there.
You had Dan Severin. You had Ken Shamrock. Those sort of guys.
Okay. Well, maybe not those guys. Maybe
I think Joe would still.
Yeah,
that was
reckon?
that was like, because there was a point where it's like guys that had actually trained were like, oh, okay, these guys are actually doing some serious hurt to some of these guys. Yeah. And then other people are, oh, so we have to like train for this. Okay.
Yeah, well, Tank Abbott sort of stepped in around number 8, I believe.
What about Gene Hackney?
Gene Hackney, the actor.
Could you? Was it Gene Hackney? What was his name? Is it
Gene Hackney?
Gene?
Who are you talking about?
No, the fighter.
Judo Gene LaBelle?
Gene, maybe. Is it?
Tito Ortiz?
No.
What's he look like?
Tito Ortiz.
No. Gene? GSP? George St. Pierre?
No, it's really early. I think he might have been an exponent of Kempo karate.
Oh, right. What sort of fighter was he?
A losing one. But he looked like he was good for a little while, and then, but you could have beaten him.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I was going to say, we're taking.
Do you see any fighters like in the early UFCs, and you go, look, I would take you out?
I'd like to think so. I mean, I'd like to think that the sport has evolved.
Yeah, if you could just go back with your technique and beat the shit out of some guys. Yeah.
But then there's even people like back then that you're like, if they were here today, like no doubt they would be a world champ.
Tank Abbott.
Well, I'm thinking more like I'm thinking more like someone like Bruce Lee, who had that idea of training every day, always mastering his craft, and also a little bit ahead of the game, like thinking ahead of the game.
Yeah, flyweight.
Like someone like that,
Yeah, well, I mean, Jeet Kune Do was basically one of the first MMA styles, because he took what works out of all the other styles and said, no, these things actually are effective. I'm putting them all into my own style. I'm getting rid of all the fluff. I'm just going to keep the stuff that's really actually working in a fight.
Well, I mean, there was some arm bars and takedowns and some of his, and you're like, okay, well, it doesn't look so pretty, but still had the idea of like, that works. So, just ahead of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So would you beat Bruce Lee? Is that what you're saying?
You're bigger.
He's a lot bigger than he is.
You just lean forward, lure him in, keep your hips back. And
I think he would have been a flyweight, wouldn't he? He was tiny. He was a small guy.
Yeah, well, like 50-something kilos.
Yeah.
It's quick, but you could probably just swat him. So,
Get out of here.
Bro, I'm 260.
Do you know how much I can bench? But it was funny seeing Tank Abbott sort of thing, where he would be getting off the bar stool and just clambering his way into the cage, just knocking people senseless, and then they would be staggered back, half bent across the cage. But he was just incredibly strong, big guy, and technique was just. Nah, I don't need that. I'm just going to throw punches at his head until he falls over.
I reckon there's still shows like that around the place. Up in Queensland.
Queensland.
In a tent.
Yeah.
You from the crowd, you.
Oh, God.
You're about the same size as him. Go on. He's wasted, but.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because when it did evolve and then Tank came back, and it was like, because he was a big hero and that style was very entertaining to see. And then he had a bit of time off, and then he came back against Frank Mir. It's like, oh yeah, smash Frank Mir. Frank Mir took him down instantly, got a bit of heel hook. Well, within 12 seconds or something, Frank Mir took it up and pointed at his face. He goes, "Look at my face. Look at my face. Not a scratch on it." It's like, yeah, that's difference right there.
Was it Frank Mir or Don Fry that was copying multiple shots to the groin area?
Yeah,
and yeah.
I remember the fight. Oh, it was Joe Son that was doing the throwing of the punches of the groin, but I don't remember who it was that was getting hit. But I don't think it was Don Fry. I don't think he came in until a bit later. But he was the one that was
somebody
in
with a moustache. I'm sure it was.
I don't know.
The pro wrestler jocks.
Pro wrestler jocks just
might have been
just
Dan
getting
Severin.
punched in the dick.
Dan Severin, possibly.
Might have been Dan Severin.
Yeah. Because when
I think you beat Dan Severin.
Yeah, when Dan beat
especially
Tank Abbott,
punch to the groin.
So Dan beat Tank Abbott with the taking him down and ground and pound basically. Yeah. And Tank said after the fight, he goes, "Yeah, it felt like I was getting raped by Freddie Mercury."
Very, very interesting. Well, so Joe, people can buy this merch from what I understand as well. Where can they get themselves some of this Vanilla Gorilla merch action?
Just hit me up on Instagram, and if you want to grab a shirt, my Instagram handle is Joe Brown MMA.
Joe Brown MMA.
Easy.
You've tried to change it Joe Brown Vanilla Gorilla MMA, or it's just
I think it's changed a few times, but we'll stick with
that. Joe Brown MMA. You can just send a message and for $50 or $60 or something, you get yourself a pretty cool shirt like this. And the nail polish is coming out early next year.
Yeah, we're working on it. We're still testing on rats.
Excellent.
The rats love it.
Test it on the eyes of pigeons and see if it works, and let us know. So we'll let you go about your ethical testing of cosmetics, and hopefully we'll see you back in the cage before Christmas.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
It would be nice. And I see belts. I see shiny belts in your future in 2024.
Underneath other belts.
Yes.
more
and
belts,
notches upon those belts. Any final thoughts? Any final words? Anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah. There's a few people I've got to thank. So.
No, you don't have to thank.
I don't know.
So see you later. No.
So to people who don't know, like behind the scenes of any MMA fighter or fighter at all, or even like athlete that sort of like trains as much as we do and has goals like we do, there's like, it invades so much into your personal life and home life. Like I'm up in the morning going off to work so I'll go up and do my road work before work, and I'm off to work at 7, and I'll get home at 4, quick shower, have some lunch, and then I'm off to training. I get back home at 7:30. So my fiance, she in fight camp, she doesn't really get to see me. Our day is maybe a Sunday, or I'll train on Saturday, so maybe Sunday. But if she's working, she don't even get to see me on Sunday. You know,
it's a good way to stay together.
Yeah,
it's don't have time to argue.
No, it's good. It's good for our health because that's it. Yeah, if we're not near each other, then I get away with, I don't get in trouble. It's a built-in excuse. Like I'm not doing the dishes. I'm like, when?
I've been piling up for 3 weeks.
I haven't eaten here for a fortnight.
I don't even live here.
This isn't even my house. I've walked into the wrong house.
So I owe her a big thank you. Yeah, just
what's her name?
Absolutely. Her name is Imogen, and she just puts up with so much. Like, not even if we're not fighting. Like,
it's questions like, what do you think of this nail polish? All of that type of stuff. So,
where did you meet Imogen? Was it through the fight world or just?
No, I've broken the chair.
Oh, you're too strong.
Too big. Too big.
That chair had 1 day left till retirement.
I think there's a lock on the side. Yeah.
That's right, I've got it. No, this is good. Met her through a dating app. But before it was what it is now. But this is 8. I should get this right. 9 years ago, I reckon.
Wow.
Yeah, 9 years ago we met. So after 9 years, she could probably stick around. So yeah.
I thought you were saying you met it 9 years ago. It's taken up till recently to get together. So we're still talking through this app. But the protocols don't match. It doesn't match with the recent updates on Apple. So 9 years you've been together.
Yeah, 9 years. Yeah, big. And it hasn't been that hard. I think I'm actually quite a catch. So
yeah, she obviously feels the same way.
Yeah,
So
breezy.
We're all in agreement.
Or if I don't step on her toes because I'm never around. So
yeah,
we've got a good system going on. It's working this far.
What was it like first? So you met through the app, and then it's like, okay, let's meet in person. What was the first meet in person thing like?
Yeah, she was quiet, but it's good because I talk. So, I chatted her ear off, and then after I left, I was like, I don't actually know if I let her say anything. It works for her, so she's a bit more quiet than I am.
Yeah, so you balance each other out nicely in that way.
Yeah.
Oh, very very cool.
Good. So yeah, obviously she puts up with a lot for my training. There's someone else that's just like gone. There's so many people, but someone else who's gone above and beyond to help me and everyone else at the gym as well. But like, just like through everything, just put it in being a body for me and emulating whoever I'm matched up against, and just like endless help is Shane Mitchell. That guy's like, he's got so much on his plate, and he's obviously got his own career that he's thinking of, and he's busy with, but he goes above and beyond with helping me, and he's always in my corner, and he's always there for advice, and and he comes back to me and he's like he's watching film, and he's like, I reckon you could try this against this guy. I'm like, yeah, this guy just goes, wow. He goes so much further than he needs to.
As a teammate, not even as a coach, just a friend and a teammate.
As a teammate, but it's more. It may as well be a coach. Like he's just, he sort of takes on that role, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there's other guys at the gym I've gone forever, like my head coach Ike. Greg he's always been there for me, especially he's been there from day dot. He's been there watching me grow and beating me up until eventually I can give it back.
Let it stop.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh no, not today."
I've got other people to beat up tonight.
Yeah. We're the other new guys. Yeah, we gotta bring them down a peg. Yeah, and then my mum. Yeah. So I've had someone message me asking me if I had a how would you call it, like a sports psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not at that stage yet where I can just I'm forking out money for people to tell me how to think. But I kind of am. Like my mum may as well be a sports psychologist. Like she's always been there for life, for anything. But yeah, she's there to get my head in the right space and always has the right thing to say. And I don't know if it's a woman thing, but I think that's a big thing that a lot of fighters should have, someone in their corner with that sort of feminine kind of energy around them, to
maternal energy.
She's been at all your fights, I'm guessing.
She's been at everyone. I think I'll go interstate. I don't know if she'll be able to not come. For sure. But she's a big one. She's like everything. Like this camp wasn't ideal for me. I had a few like potential like injuries that could have pulled me out from the fight, but I was like, no, I'm gonna knuckle down. I'll do everything right. I'll try and do everything I can to recover from these. And it's been her. So she was a naturopath for 25 years, and she obviously learned a few tricks of the trade. So handy to have her in my corner.
Was there any specific moment or piece of advice that she gave you that you really remember?
It's I don't know. It's just having her around sort of puts me in the right space. Yeah. And even fight day, like it's so chaotic, especially at the fights. It's like everyone. I mean, I don't want to be like I was sitting backstage. I was like, "Mom," and it's all,
It's good that she's there.
It's just if it wasn't her, it'd be someone else, And I would say it's not that important. And now I've got it. I think it is that important to have someone, that you can have in your corner that keeps your mind right. and keeps you set straight. And I'm lucky that she's not the only one. You know, I've got my jiu-jitsu coach, Dylan, who's the same. Dylan Opitz, everyone in Adelaide knows him. He's the same. He's always there in my corner, and he's literally in my corner in the fights, but he's the same. Me and him think on the same sort of wavelength as well. So, yeah. And then I guess I should thank Damien Volar for pushing me in this last camp, because I'm always pushing myself, but I ticked all the boxes this fight camp. I was up every morning, 6 a.m. doing my road work. And then I was training every single night, pushing myself every night, 3 hours at night. I think I had 1 day off in 10 weeks. So I think I had one day to rest in 10 weeks,
Wow.
I've never been so determined that, like, come fight night, that was the best version. I mean, there was things that I wish they weren't there, but I did the right thing, and then it came to fight night and they didn't hold me back at all. So that was 100% the best version of me up to this point, and I'm only improving, so I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely good stuff. Well, that's it. You could build this real rivalry or friendly rivalry together, because you guys are so following the same sort of progression in careers, and it's like if you're both pushing each other and you're that close of a level, it's like, oh, it's almost like
such a similar trajectory, isn't it?
Fantastic measuring stick. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I know, like, it's obviously we're in the same scene and now we're in the same weight class, but it's like I feel like he's that guy, like we're always in the same bracket, like it's always going to be there. But it's I think it's funny. I think we a lot alike as well. Not that like I think we have the same values and sort of the same idea on how we carry ourselves. And I mean, different people, like other people have different things to say about him. I'm sure he'll know people that have different things to say about me. Certain people don't mix. And maybe I don't really mix with him, but I know that, he sort of sees the world the same way I do. And it's good to have him as a,
measuring stick.
This one definitely pushed me to be the best version that I can be.
Yeah, you're not going to step to the next level unless your opponent is either better than you or just, almost as good. It's like, because if you're taking on challenges that you know that you're going to beat really easily, it's like, I don't really have to train that hard. Oh, I can sleep in today. But if you're fighting somebody that's like, man, this guy's really tough, and it's like, I need to put everything I got into it, because if I don't, I'm going to get destroyed. And it's like, that'll get you out of bed at 6 in the morning.
That as well, if you don't put everything into it and then you end up winning, you kind of get this imposter syndrome where you think, do I really deserve that? Or do I just kind of be a bit casual from here on in? Is that my winning formula? And, whereas when you leave it all on the table and you've ticked all the boxes and you've done everything you can, win, lose, or draw, but you can walk away with the satisfaction as you have. You've seen it as a stepping stone. Whereas maybe if you hadn't thrown the kitchen sink at it, you'd be just, regretting those decisions, or that day that you took off that turned into 3 days, and that cheap meal that, seemed to go from 6 o'clock until midnight, that type of thing, That
long meal.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how I eat most nights. So,
that's it. That's so true as well. Like, you don't. So I've been in that position where maybe I think one of my strengths is that I'm always, so it doesn't matter who the opponent is, I'm focused on being the best version that I can be, and always improving and doing all the right things. So, I mean, that's a helpful trait, but I mean, I've been there where I've maybe had a fight that was a little bit, it felt like I wasn't as good as I was being built up to be.
Yeah.
Because, maybe like you say, like maybe I hadn't trained as hard or gone the extra mile, so I didn't feel like I deserved it. Yeah. So I've been there, and it's sort of, threw my whole world into a bit of a spin for a little while. So, but this one is just, I've got no regrets. I mean, I'm always going to wish that that the results went my way, but it's my fault anyway. I should have done certain things differently, and I can only say that there's probably a good chance that I get a shot to redeem it later down the track anyway.
Yeah. This is the learning phase, isn't it? It's the fun part about going out there and giving it your best, knowing that you are at the best that you could possibly be. It's like, okay, I didn't get the win, but I knew I can improve on those things. And I didn't know that I was not doing those things. And the only way you would have found out is by going out and competing. Yeah. It's like, you don't know what you don't know. So find out, then you will improve, you'll get better. And, you know, every single time that you get back in the cage, you're going to be better and better and better. And the only reason that you can do that is because you've had those areas exposed, or this defense wasn't working, or that was too slow. And it's like, I didn't know that I was doing those things until you go back and actually have a fight. And it's like, oh, okay, now I know what I need to work on. Yeah. But it was funny with Mike Tyson used to get angry when he would win a fight too quickly, or so quickly. And he would be like, I did 10 weeks of training and this dude can't even last 25 seconds. It's like, why did I do all that training? So annoyed, was so angry at his opponents for not lasting long enough.
Yeah, that's 2024 for you, Joe. Well, Joe, I'm sure we will see you in an MMA cage somewhere. I'm sure any of the promoters that are around the country right now that are looking at their cards thinking, hang on, I need some star power. Middleweight, yes, okay. And now know that you are fresh and that you are ready to take on anybody between now and Christmas, which should excite every single one of those promoters out there. So I'm sure that the phone will be ringing, Joe, and we'll see you in a cage very, very soon.
Oh, it sounds good to me. I'm ready.
Oh, awesome. This is exactly what we want to hear, MMA fans. So, well, Joe, the Vanilla Gorilla Brown, thank you very much for joining us here on the Daily Combat Podcast. Once again, I think this is your third visit now, isn't it?
I think so. Third or fourth.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're not even keeping track.
It's my second home.
Oh, beautiful. Well, feel free to hang in there if you want, because we'll change over to the AWE podcast in a little while. But to all those people that are kind enough to tune in to the Daily Combat Podcast, we thank you. And on behalf of Hollywood Matt Connolly, there's some biceps, and myself and our very, very special guest, Joe the Vanilla Gorilla Brown. It's just one-ups. Hollywood Matt Connolly with the bicep pose. It was bound to happen at some stage. Somebody had to do it. And we'll see you on the Daily Combat Podcast next time.
Thanks very much. All right, we'll end it there.